good evening, everybody. Looks like I can unmute myself. Yeah, welcome to the DAC-WA forum. It's great to have so many names on the side chat bar right now. For those of you who don't know me, I am Kenny Salvini. I'm one of the co-founders and president of the Here Now project, and yeah, we have still shifted all our programming to the virtual space these days. You know, we've found the silver lining that we've been able to reach people from all over, which makes it kind of nice so that people can kind of check in from wherever they are. And I'm just really super excited to have another DAC-WA forum. We've got a great list of presenters and topics tonight. Yeah, you know, I just want to thank our top tier sponsors, which is our platinum sponsor is Kersey Mobility, and our two gold sponsors are Movement Mortgage and National Seating and Mobility. And yeah, we're just really excited to see everybody here. I'm going to make a plug just for everybody to stick around as long as you can, because we're going to be having a giveaway that Meg can talk about after I hand off the MC duties to her. But yeah, yeah, just if we can keep everybody's screens off for the most part, just to kind of help with bandwidth, and we'll keep all the questions and stuff in the chat, and we'll be able to handle that from here. But with that, I will take it off to good old Meg Paulson, one of our intrepid. I call her our rolling Rolodex. She is our resource guru.
I love it.
Go for it, Meg.
Everybody, thank you for joining us this evening. We've got a fun-filled evening ahead of us with some very interesting speakers. And these are people that are outdoor enthusiasts and have figured out a way to make the best of the Pacific Northwest and want to share those experiences with you all so that we can all have a great summer and have plenty to do. And please stay on for the entire forum if you would like to be in contention for our raffle items, which is a Hilton hotel credit card or debit card, and then also a Visa card to help pay with other expenses so that you can have a weekend away on the here and now. So let's get started. Our first speaker is Lily Longshore. Lily is a wife, a mom, a retired environmental engineer, as well as an advocate educator for those with vision impairment and physical disabilities. She is an avid world traveler and a passionate wheelchair accessible writer. Lily lives with C5-6 quadriplegia as of January 2002. Lily.
Well, first of all, I thank you for inviting me to talk about my all-time favorite subject, which is wheelchair accessible travel. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm going to start this there. All right, there we go. So I'm talking about awesome day trips and road trips around Washington State. So in summary, I'll talk a little bit about who I am, day trips, road trips, fairs and festivals, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions. And as Meg said, I am a wife and a mom. My family is very important to me. I'm an advocate and an educator for vision impairment and people with physical disability. I myself am C5-6 quadriplegic. And then I also have an inherited retina disease called retinitis pigmentosa, which at this point has made me legally blind. I'm an engineer, a retired engineer. There's a thing that's in the way here. There it goes. I'm a retired environmental civil engineer and environmental chemist. Okay, there's things that are in the front of my notes that is for some reason. And I love traveling and I love writing about my travel experiences. I published about 26 articles in different magazines and I put them all on my website for people to use. And most recently did a book on wheelchair accessible Washington. So there's my baby when he was first day of kindergarten, and there he is. He just turned 21 though. It's just, I can't believe it happened so fast, but he's a nice young man. It was a true pleasure raising him. And for some reason, my slides are not advancing anymore. Huh. Well, when I scroll,
they're moving now.
Yeah, I scroll. It's not a very good controlled one. Okay, so for me on day trips, Fort Vancouver. I live in Vancouver, Washington, so it's Fort Vancouver, Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge, Bonneville Dam and Fish Hatchery, the Chehalis area, Mount St. Helens, and these are pictures. Here's a Fort Vancouver. Fort Vancouver's a 233-acre National Historic Site. It was originally the Hudson's Bay Company, owned by Britain, actually, in 1824. And the structures that are there now are within the fort wall, and they're all wheelchair accessible. These little buildings all have ramps, and then there's a lift that goes up to the main house, which is the McLaughlin House. And on that same 233-acre campus is the Pearson Airfield Museum, which is right next door. That's got a lot of history to it. And then they also have Officers Row, which is the north part of the park. A little bit north of Vancouver is Ridgefield, and there's a National Wildlife Refuge there, which is over 5,000 acres. There's 2 units, the Carty unit and the River S unit. And on the Carty unit, there's a Native American plant house that once you go in the doors, there's a ramp that goes down and you can go look at all of the living space and everything in there, nice and close. And then on the River S unit, there's a 4-mile auto trail that goes around all these wetlands areas. And partway through, you can get out and go onto a DAC-WA trail, which is 1.5 miles and goes through woods and grasslands and wetlands and over boardwalks. And it's actually really beautiful. Lots and lots of wildlife there. It's really, really a neat place. A little bit east of Vancouver is the Bonneville Dam and the Columbia Gorge, and there are 2 visitor centers. There's the Washington Shores Visitor Center on the Washington side, and that features electrical production. So the giant turbines and everything that makes the electrical production happen is featured over there. And then on the Oregon side is all the fish stuff. So the fish ladders and the fish hatchery, which the fish hatchery itself is like a 23-acre place with trails, and it's got a big sturgeon tank and some other things. And when Alex was a little kid, he used to love to buy fish food in the little 25-cent vending machine and feed the ducks and the fish. And so it's just as a neat place to go as a family. It was fun. Chehalis is about an hour and 20 minutes north of Vancouver along I-5, and the Willapa Hills State Park Trail is a really, Ian suggested that to me. It was a really cool trail, really nicely maintained and very, very scenic over bridges, and it goes through pasture land, and it's actually really beautiful. In Mount St. Helens, from here is a 2.5-hour drive one way. So when I was able to do this, I knew, 2.5 hours there and all these stops and 2.5 hours back. I figured after I could do this, I knew I could do road trips. But if you go I-5 to State Route 504, you can head to the mountain that way. And if you go that way, there are 3 places that are wheelchair accessible that you can stop and see. And one of them is the Silver Lake Visitor Center, which is actually a state park run visitor center. It's got all kinds of volcano information inside, and then behind it is a 1-mile riparian habitat loop that you can go through that's wheelchair accessible. Then if you go a little further down the road, you get to Coldwater Lake Park, which is a picnic area, actually. It used to be a creek, and when the mountain blew, it closed it off and became a lake. And they built this half-mile boardwalk that you can go and check out, and it's so peaceful and beautiful there. And on a clear day, you can see the mountain, and it's definitely worth stopping at. And then the final place is along State Route 504 at the end is the Johnston Ridge Observatory, which is a really large visitor center that's got lots of displays inside and a theater. And out on the big patio in front, you have great views of the mountain on a clear day. So it's actually all 3 of those. And it's also a beautiful, beautiful drive going along 504. So, and like I said, on the day trips, pardon, on the day trips, I try to learn things as I go, and if it didn't work, try to figure out what to do next. I guess it's my engineering problem. So I try to map out, for me, I need restrooms, and all the places that I mentioned have nice wheelchair accessible restrooms. I look for paths like bike paths, river walks, and boardwalks because they're relatively level. Wheelchairs do not count as motorized vehicles. So when you see those Forest Service signs that say no motorized vehicles, they are not talking about you. You are a pedestrian. As long as you're in a legitimate wheelchair, then you're a pedestrian. And then there's a national access pass that gets you in free to all the federal lands, whether it's Bureau of Land Management or National Wildlife Refuge, National Park, National Forest, any of those, you get in free with an access pass. And you can get one of those at www.store.usgs.gov. And the Discovery Pass gets you in free to state parks, and your disability plate or placard in the state of Washington counts as a Discovery Pass. So once I could do, like I said, the long road trip to Mount St. Helens and back, I knew I could do, once I could do the day trip to and from St. Helens, I could do road trips because I could endure a longer amount of time in a vehicle with all those stops. So for road trips, for me, Long Beach Peninsula, Olympic Peninsula, Washington Islands, Leavenworth, and Chelan are a handful of my top fun places to go. South Bend, which is on the Long Beach Peninsula, is the western end of the Willapa Hills State Park Trail. I gotta say that it was not as well maintained as the side in Chehalis, and it also ran along the road for a lot of miles. And so I like the Chehalis side best, but I thought this was a neat place too. South Bend is the county seat of Pacific County, and they have a really beautiful historic courthouse with a huge stained glass dome. And they also have a really nice waterfront. So it was pretty cool going there. But my favorite place on the Long Beach Peninsula is Cape Disappointment State Park. They have two lighthouses. The Cape Disappointment Lighthouse, I could get all the way to the base, and it's got spectacular views down there and on that point. And they also have a trail called Baird's Overlook that takes you out to a platform. You go through the forest and out into this platform for really nice views of the Pacific Ocean. On the north side of the park is where the Discovery Trail begins. And the Discovery Trail goes 8.3 miles from the north side of Cape Disappointment State Park in El Waco all the way to the town of Long Beach. And it is really a great trail. It has asphalt, and then when you get into Long Beach, it splits out to where you can choose to go on 0.4 miles of a boardwalk or continue on the asphalt trail. And they have all these beautiful, interesting markers that are historic things, and then some like carved dolphins, and then just all kinds of things that they have along the trail. Lewis and Clark did some of their exploration here, and they've got a lot of historic things that are from their exploration. So it's actually really a neat trail to go on. North from there is the Olympic Peninsula. I like the Nisqually Wildlife Refuge. I think it is fabulous. It's about 4,500 acres. 4 miles of wheelchair accessible trail are there, and 1 mile of it is this really wonderful boardwalk that goes out into the mudflats of South Puget Sound. It's just a great place to look at all the little critters that live in mudflats. It's a very unique habitat. Also on the Olympic Peninsula is Lake Quinault, and this was the first place that I actually went into a temperate rainforest. It was so vibrant and green and beautiful. So it was just a thing that really sticks in my mind. This is the Kestner Homestead Trail. And it's only about 1.5 miles, but it was really a beautiful, really neat trail. And they had some farm equipment and some old buildings and stuff from the homestead too that was there. On the north side of the peninsula, Port Townsend is a beautiful Victorian type architecture town. And next to it is Fort Worden State Park, and it's one of the forts that compose the Triangle of Fire. And I was able to get all the way to the top in my power chair up a grassy slope next to the gun turrets and everything, and it was a really nice view there. On Fort Worden, or in Fort Worden State Park, they have a wheelchair that you can borrow at the cantina, and you can borrow that for free and go on some of the beach area. So that's actually, Long Beach also has one that's available for free at the Kite Museum that I forgot to mention. So going north of that, Washington Islands, I love to stay in Anacortes on Fidalgo Island. I think it's just a beautiful, charming, welcoming town. I like the little shops and the little cafes and everything that are there. On the one end of the town, they have Cap Santee Marina, which gives you access to the Tommy Thompson Rails to Trail Trail. Going across the bridge, you can go to Deception Pass State Park. They've got really beautiful views from sea cliffs and piers that go out into the water that have great scenic views. I just really like it there. And the ferry landing in Anacortes it's a great jumping off place to get to the San Juan Islands. And for me, whether I actually spend much time in San Juan Island or not, I love the ferry ride. I think the ferry ride just on its own is just a really cool thing to do. Friday Harbor is where it ends up in San Juan Island. And that's a neat little town to go through. And there's also a park called American Camp that is a national park. I had to transfer into a golf cart that was owned by the Park Service to get down to where the historic buildings are, but I was able to do that. So it was, like I said, just the trip over there in the ferry boat is really easy and it's just a really cool thing to do. Going toward the mountains, Leavenworth, they have done a really wonderful job of creating the feel of a little German town. It really does look like Bavaria. You see the North Cascades in the background, it looks like the Alps. They have a Nutcracker museum there that's wheelchair accessible. That's a very German thing. They've got German bakeries. So they've done a really great job of making this a little German, almost like a little German community. And they have lots of festivals there. They also have a river walk that goes along the Wenatchee River. It's not completely connected yet, but it begins in Leavenworth and ultimately will end in Wenatchee for a 20-mile river walk along the Wenatchee River. They do have a section completed in Leavenworth and in Kashmir and in Wenatchee, but really a beautiful area. Further east, I like Lake Chelan. The wineries, of course, are really neat, and they've started a thing called a Cider House Trail now, doing hard apple cider. So that's kind of a neat thing. It's very sunny there. It's just a nice place to visit, and they also have a really nice river walk that's about 3 miles. When we were there last time, we accessed the river walk from the lake, the waterfront park, and they were having an Earth Day festival there a couple years ago, which was really a neat thing. And they opened the firehouse and had a big barbecue that they invited everybody to, tourists and the community and everybody, for this complimentary barbecue that everybody was welcome to. So it just is a really nice, comforting, warming, welcoming community. So my road trip lessons. I have learned to reserve way ahead of time. So maybe 6 to 8 months ahead of time, I'm looking for a place to stay. I look for free cancellation places just in case something happens. Wheelchair accessible means different things to different people. So I'm really specific. I ask for wheelchair accessible, but then I also say, how wide is your entry door? How wide is your bathroom door opening? Are there grab bars around the toilet? Anything that's important to me, I ask specifically for that. I don't assume that they have it. Again, I look for bike paths, river walks, and boardwalks because they're relatively level. And then your National Access Pass gets you in free to all federal lands, and your Discovery Pass is your disability plate or placard in the state of Washington and gets you in free to parks that are state-owned. So the next thing for me were the fair and festivals. So Alex was 2 when I broke my neck, and we were always looking for things to do that made the whole family happy, that would entertain all of us. And so we landed on doing lots of fairs and festivals. Washington is still a fairly agricultural state, and so we do have some really nice county fairs, and we have 2 state fairs that are really wonderful. Then lots of communities like Long Beach, Skagit Valley's got a Tulips Festival. Leavenworth has something every week, literally every week in a normal year. And then I love Sequim's Lavender Festival. It just smells great. So this is, I wonder if I can do this. Clark County Fair. I'm going to try to play this for you. Just a few seconds of it. Okay, I won't expose you to too much of it. I love bluegrass music. And at the Clark County Fair, as of 2018, they've started having the Washington State Fiddlers Contest. And this is just a really cool event to watch. You have these kids that are, you know, maybe 7 years old coming up. They have different age groups that come up and compete, and it just is such a wonderful event to have in our own community. The fairgrounds are really nicely wheelchair accessible, and they have all kinds of, you know, concerts and events and everything around that. And I gotta say, their barns, they are really clean about their barns, so you don't have to worry about running through manure and such. Oops, I'm trying to get past this. Oh, there we go. Oops, I skipped one. There we go. So, excuse me. So Washington State has, in addition to many county fairs, Washington State has 2 state fairs. One of them is in Puyallup, and again, they have really nice, accessible fairgrounds, clean barns, lots of activities, lots of events, lots of concerts, and things going on. And then in Yakima, they have the Central Washington Fair, and it's a little bit of a different feel on each of the Western Fair and then the Eastern Fair. They're very, it's a very agricultural area over there, and so they actually had really incredible, the Grange Halls do a display of their produce in a very artistic way, and they compete. I think they do that in Puyallup too, actually, but it was very impressive over in Yakima. It was just a neat display of everything that they produce over there, and their barns were especially clean. It just was a very just a very accessible and just a fun place to go. And again, nice and sunny, so that's good. In Leavenworth, like I said, every week, literally every week in a normal year, they have a festival of some sort. So they have the Maypole Festival, they have a Christmas Lights Festival, they have Oktoberfest. In June 17th to June 20th, they will have International Accordion Celebration, which I plan on going to. I haven't been, but I need to check it out. Accordions are very Eastern European and German, so they're sticking with that you know, a lot of the culture tradition of the Bavaria side of things. So, Skagit Valley, the Tulip Festival is one of my favorites. It's the full month of April, and they do a really good job of having a whole calendar of events going on. If you call the people who are organizing it, it's on their radar what's accessible and what's not. More than half of the events are wheelchair accessible, like the Mount Vernon Street Fair is. The fields themselves are kind of muddy, and I've never tried to get in them with my wheelchair, but I know they have 2 commercial gardens. One is called Tulip Town and the other one's Rosengard, and I'm able to get through there. It's grass and gravel, and I'm able to do that in my power chair. And then at Mount Vernon's Municipal Park, they have a salmon bank every year. Which is really cool to go to. That's where we stuck our faces through the little tulips there. So I love the Tulip Festival. It's really beautiful. And then Sequim has the Lavender Festival, which just smells so wonderful. It's just incredible to be out there in the middle of all that lavender and just breathe. It's a beautiful place. And again, it's a sunny place. I was told by the organizers that all of their tulip farms are basically grass and gravel, which this one is Purple Haze Tulip Farm. I'm sorry, Lavender Farm. I had no problem with that in my power chair. So really neat places. Long Beach Peninsula, they have many festivals, but 2 of my favorite are the Kite Festival, which is very colorful, and they usually have that in August. And then the Sandcastle Festival they have in July. In the Sandcastle Festival, I am amazed at the detail these people are able to put into their sandcastles. It really is very impressive. So those are favorite festivals. So in the state of Washington, there's just so much to see and do. It's accessible, you know, trails, there's lovely, charming towns, there's accessible historic sites, and tons of festivals and events, many that I just did a handful of each category here, but we just live in a really beautiful state, and we are very fortunate. So some travel resources. I have a website. It's lillylongshore.com, Lilly Longshore, and I put all of my published articles, which are basically wheelchair accessible vacations that have been planned out for you if you're interested. And then I published a book called Lily's Most Excellent Wheelchair Adventures, Wheeling Washington State, and that's on Amazon. And then there's a website called Accessible Go that you can get discount tickets on different wheelchair accessible events and tours and hotels and that kind of thing. Plus they got a lot of write-ups and information there. And then there's a website called Ewan's Guide, which is a worldwide travel website. And it's a whole lot like TripAdvisor, except for it is for people with all kinds of disabilities. And it's really good because people who are reviewing will say, I used a manual chair or I used a power chair. If they're blind, they say I used a white cane or I used a guide dog. And so it actually has really, you know, the perspective of the person. So that's actually a great website. So, and that's it. I'm ready for questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Lily.
Did I ramble that off in less than 20 minutes?
Great.
Yes, we're ahead. We're ahead of our schedule.
Yeah, some people have been writing in the chat. You've been getting some great comments. I know Jane Ahrens had a question.
Jane's question was, what is an auto trail?
Oh, it's driving. You drive in your auto. You're not allowed to get out of your car for a part of it because you don't want to disturb the wildlife. And then there is a place where there's a parking lot, and that's where you get onto the Kiowa Trail and your pedestrians or wheelchairs or whatever.
Great. And Greg Jacob says the Sternwheeler Riverboat is a great 5-hour outing from Cascade Locks.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah. And Balin, are you able to unmute and ask your question?
I didn't have a question. I answered the one about that I thought the auto trail was for cars.
Okay.
Where's Cascade Locks?
It's about an hour east of Portland on 84.
Oh, okay.
Before Hood River. Actually, it's right where the Bonneville Dam is,
Okay.
on the Oregon side, and it's Bonneville, Washington on the Washington side. And it is. I just went on one of those cruises recently, and they did a really nice job. I will say their restroom was hard. My wheelchair, it's not a big wheelchair, but it's, you know, it's like a normal. It's not. I think it might be a little bit longer, but I had a hard time using their restroom on the ship.
Good information. Lucas/Burke says Cape Disappointment doesn't sound very disappointing.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a great place. They also have the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center there. I don't know if I mentioned that. And that's also wheelchair accessible. So they have a number of things to see at Cape Disappointment State Park and some old fort stuff. It used to be called Fort Canby. So the remnants of a fort is still there too.
And somebody asked when the Clark County Fair is, and Greg answered early August.
It is. That's a great fair.
Oh, good. It looks like something was canceled. Rob, what was canceled for 2021?
I peeked at the website real quick and they said it is postponed until 2022, the Clark County Fair.
You're kidding. Wow. They've had the sign up along I-5. So that must be a new development.
Or they haven't updated their website.
Oh, that could be. They do have it up in lights saying that it's supposed to be the beginning of August, but that's bad to not have it on their website. It's an awesome fair though, when they have it. I will check it out. I will check it out and let you know what the sign says up there and send it to Kenny or somebody if people are interested.
Greg Jacobs, you had mentioned a place in Winthrop. Are you able to unmute and?
Yep, I'm here. Yeah, about a year and a half ago, I booked an Airbnb, and those are always risky because you never know what the accessibility is going to be. But this place was advertised as having a roll-in shower because the guy who built it had a son with a disability that required that. We went there, and I think a 2-night minimum, and it was really, really nice. It was just out of town, kind of across from the ranger station with a good view. And the roll-in shower was always welcome, but the bed was so dang high. I think probably the top of the mattress was about 4 feet high.
Wow.
So there's no way I could get up on it, but they had a fold out couch that worked. But it was a beautiful place and a great getaway. And, you know, I'd recommend it because it was a good experience.
And then you had a question about crowdsource.
Well, yeah, instead of relying on Lily to go all these places and check them all out, which she's done a great job of, anybody that has a good or conversely a bad experience at one of these places, we ought to be able to say, hey, stay away from this place. It advertises that it's accessible, but it really doesn't work for my particular equipment. Or you can say, hey, this really is a great place and we need to pay these proprietors more attention and, you know, be a customer because it really works. So make accessibility pay for the people that do it right.
Good point.
Good point.
And I see Jane's hand up and she's unmuted now, and then Ian after Jane.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yep. Okay, well, I have a golden access passport that I've had for a really long time, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing that you were talking about.
It is.
It is. Okay, so
Yeah, it is.
Not the Discovery Pass, but the
Golden
other
Access is federal. Yeah, it's federal. So national parks, national forests, BLM, that's
Yeah.
federal.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks, Jane. And Ian, did you have a question?
I did. First off, thanks, Lily. You're awesome. Loved hearing about all this. And, you know, I'm a trail nerd, so I'm really focused on the trail stuff you're talking about. And I did want to ask, what are some of the things you like to do out there? I mean, do you like to photograph or you like to sun worship? You know, what are some things you love to be doing out on the trail?
You know, I love the scenery and I love nature. I can't see birds so well, but I try to listen to the bird calls and figure out what they are. And sometimes I get to see the birds. I mean, if I'm really lucky, sometimes I do. So yeah, I love the wildlife and just nature. Well, and of course, you know, the trees and I noticed that like in the Ridgefield Wildlife Refuge, they have elderberry bushes, which I grew up in kind of a swampy area in the Midwest, and we used to go pick elderberries a lot for my mom. And I haven't seen an elderberry bush until here, you know, so it was actually pretty cool seeing that. The plants I can see plants. They don't run away or anything. So I like doing that too. So.
Nice. Thank you.
And thank you also for identifying the birds that I randomly don't know what they are. When my husband takes pictures of them and I can get a real close up, I put them on Facebook and have people help me out.
That's great.
That's what I do.
I don't see any other hands up. Anybody else have a question? Please raise your hand. Oh, we see Chuck there, who is with Marty Whitman. Did you have a question, Chuck? Marty, are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Chuck is being a smart aleck. He's screwing around back here.
No, I'm not.
He doesn't have any questions. Well, maybe.
I'm here for the education.
Hey, that's a great presentation you did, Lily. That's great information.
Thank you.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Oh.
You know, I was wondering on places to review accommodations and stuff. There's a Facebook page called Accessible Travel Club, and I see people post things on that. So that might be a place. And then also Ewan's Guide. It is international, and so there would be a place to review things on that too. It's kind of like a TripAdvisor, only for those of us with disabilities. They're just ideas.
I think that Jill McCauley had also mentioned a Facebook group, and then I see Brian Baker has his hand up. Jill, did you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, yes, sorry, it took a second. But it's called Wheelchair Hiking. And I've seen, you know, people when they've gone on trails or they have updates about the current, you know, trail that a lot of people use, or if it's something new, they post either pictures or information about the bathroom situation or parking and that type of stuff. So that's a good one that I've seen a lot on stuff on.
That is a great website.
Thank you. And Brian Baker?
Oh, I just wanted to say, if anyone's up in the Redmond area, we have great trails, especially the East Lake Sammamish or the Sammamish River Trail. They're both, I don't know, 12, 15 miles long, but good places to go. And then the Snoqualmie Valley has a couple trails that are really nice.
Wonderful.
Great.
Yeah, it would be nice to have this all in one place as a reference. So maybe that's something we can think about starting for resources with the Here and Now project.
Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
All right, well, let's move on then. If you do end up having a question, jot it down and we'll have time at the end to go back and answer your questions. Just a reminder that one of our 2 raffle items that we have is a $100 gift certificate to a Hilton property that like Hampton Inn Embassy Suites. And just to let everybody know that Hilton was one of the first hotel properties to take the ADA seriously. And they are very consistent in their properties as far as being accessible. And if they don't, they are very welcome. They welcome feedback. And it's just, I can relax if I know I'm at a Hilton property, because I know that I'll be able to see in the mirror and all those little things that we take for granted at home. So our next speaker is Denise Smith-Irwin. And Denise is a part-time teacher and life coach and serves on the board of 2 amazing nonprofit organizations, Ian's Ride and the Dreamcatcher Balloon Program. Her injury was 19 years ago from a rollover car accident resulting in a level C5-6 spinal cord injury. One of her first thoughts while in the hospital after the accident was, how am I going to travel and still continue to do the things that I love in this paralyzed body? It was then that she realized she had a true passion to see and do things outdoors, and that was not going to change. And now her intention is to encourage you to get out there and enjoy life as much as possible, and to just do life no matter what your situation is. Denise?
Thank you, Meg, for that nice introduction. First, I also want to say thank you so much to Claire Salvini, who put together this amazing slideshow for me, because I'm not as savvy as Lily is with all the slides and the presentation. So I need some help with that in the future. And also for Kenny, who is going to be moving on the slide one at a time so I can talk about them. So thank you. And also I'm really excited about, doing this and getting into the talking about outdoors and doing all these exciting things. I focus more on the things, there's some things around Seattle and maybe Daytrips. I do live in Woodinville, Washington. So a lot of stuff is kind of a day trip for me around here, but there's some things that are farther away. And I also just want to let you know that everything that I talk about tonight, I've personally done myself. So I've been in the wheelchair and done it, and I have a resource page and the website right next to everything I talked about. So if you get to that after the session, just click on the website and everything you need to know is right there. So, okay, so I think I'm gonna start with, all right, so Kenny, you wanna scroll down? All right, there's the 3 pictures, perfect. I'm gonna start with the Great Wheel in Seattle. I don't know if anybody's done this, but this opened a few years ago. And I was one of the first persons in a wheelchair on that. And gondola, at the time, they had just a wooden board. It was kind of a little sketchy getting on that gondola, but they do have a ramp there. And there's plenty of room in there to get in with a wheelchair and 3 or 4 people. And I would highly encourage this. It's so much fun. Even if you're hesitant about heights, you feel enclosed and it's a little bit safe, feeling safe because you're enclosed. And an interesting perspective being in the air looking onto the city from the water at that height. So I would encourage that. And they also have, when you get there, you don't even need to call ahead. You get there, they actually have a hydraulic lift you can get on, and they will put you up to that platform that he's standing on. And then that's how you get from the platform into the gondola. But a lot of fun. I think it's about $10, maybe $15 per person. The next thing I want to look at, the next 2 pictures are from the Elbe train ride into the logging museum. I didn't think I'd be able to get on a train, but this is a pretty cool steam engine. And it leaves from Elbe and goes to this logging museum. It's about a 45-minute ride. And that's me sitting in front of one of the many interesting things. Oops, there we go, that were at the logging museum. And the picture next to that is actually, that's me in the train car. And if you call ahead, they will sit you right at the front of one of those cars. So you do need to call ahead for wheelchair accessibility. They'll get you in there. There's only 2 spots available. So if you want to do this, I would highly encourage you like call way in advance because they sell out fast. But this, if you notice, there was decorating in there. This was actually an Oktoberfest that was going on where there's beer tasting in there. And then on the way to the logging museum, and then you get out and walk around, there's more cider and beer tasting. And that was a lot of fun. So that's another thing that I really enjoyed. Okay, Kenny, next, please. Footloose Sailing. I'm sure some of you have heard about this. Bob Ewing, he's amazing. He's been doing this for 20, 25 years. And, you know, I love their quote. It's like, leave your disability at the dock. Well, basically, that's pretty much what it is. You can basically get out of your chair and get right into a boat, no matter what your level of disability is. They're so helpful. Here's, it's like a big lift from a dock, and they will take you directly from your wheelchair and into the boat. There's different boats you can go on. You can go and sail one yourself. Actually, we have a quadriplegic in our group, Farron, who he sails the boat competitively with a sip and puff. So they even have that available for high quads too. You can take another boat with your family and friends on it too, and they just make it so pleasant and relaxing. You can even take lessons on them. So that's a lot of fun to do in the summer. I did forget to mention at the beginning of the presentation that some of these things I did not check because of COVID. So you might want to check, you know, because of the COVID restrictions to see if they're doing that or not. I'm not sure about Footloose Sailing. And they also do a really cool weekend getaway for a weekend. They take all everybody over to, I think it's an island, Camino Island. It's one of the islands for a weekend. So that's something else that they organize pretty much every year in August. I had to include some of my favorite trails. There were really so many to pick from, but I did some of the ones that are my favorite recently, and Ian will talk more about them, and Lily touched on a couple of them. One of my favorite, and I think Brian commented on this, we both live in the Redmond area, the Snoqualmie Valley Trail has been one of my recent favorites because it's in Carnation. So the thing about it, it's very long. It goes from Duval to North Bend. And toward the end, there's actually stairs, so you can't go any farther than that. But the one thing about the Snoqualmie Valley Trail is I did take a picture of the surface right there. It is flat and it's level. Some parts are just paved trail with some loose stones on it, but a lot of it is like this. So depending on your abilities, you might want to, you know, you can do a little bit of it and see if it'll work. There's not any mud around, and it's level and flat. So and there's different points to get off and on that trail. And again, there's a website on the resource page. Just click on it and it'll tell you all the details about where to get on and off. You can also see, if you see to the right, there's just a really cool, this is one of the photos along the trail. There's a logging mill, a small logging mill you see across in one of the trails. So you just feel like you're out in the farm in the country. You go through Remlinger Farm, you see alpacas and llamas, and just a fun thing to do. So that's one. It's hard not to go into detail, but I did want to mention the Centennial Trail. I didn't put pictures on there because I had so many, I wasn't sure, but that's a great wheelchair accessible paved trail that goes from Marysville all the way to Snoqualmie. And that's a lot of fun to do if you just do some of it and end up in Snoqualmie in the downtown cute little town and do some shopping or get an appetizer and a meal afterward. Centennial Trail is paved. It can be quite busy. I would recommend staying away from that on the weekend. But still, it's got some great scenery and some little lakes off to the side that you can enjoy too. Okay, I'm skipping. I got some pictures here from the East Lake Sammamish Trail that Brian mentioned as well. It goes from Redmond all the way to Issaquah. I think it is about 12 miles. There's a couple miles in between the center where it is hard packed loose gravel. So sometimes that's kind of hard to go through because it's bumpy, but if you can deal with that for a little bit and cross the whole trail. But there's also plenty of trail to go from Redmond to Sammamish Lake, and these are some of the views along the way. And accessible picnic areas. I don't think I have the picture of the table there that's accessible, but there's a table that's cut out where you can go and sit and have lunch or even grill. So the Sammamish Trail. The next slide Cushman Trail. I don't know if anybody, I haven't really heard too many people talk about this trail, but it is in Gig Harbor. It's a 6-mile paved trail. And I love to go in the spring. They have beautiful flowers along there. And if you can see, there's a view of Gig Harbor. It wasn't too crowded when we went. Again, I would just stay away from the weekends, but this was just really nice and it was quiet. And my friend and I we just had a lovely time. And it's paved and pretty much, there's a little hill there, but most of it's pretty much level. Okay, I'm gonna go on next to the Tommy Thompson Trail. And I know Lily mentioned this as well, but this is I couldn't believe it took me so long to get there, but I finally did it this past summer. I went twice. And just like she said, it's just amazing. It's a great boardwalk, waterfall. Anacortes is a fun little town and great views of the mountains, both on each side of the bridge. Just a great trail. But if you love water, you're gonna like this. It's got a great breeze too. So, okay, a few more. These are my favorites. The next one, I love this one. This is Iron Goat Trail. And it is pretty long, but I would highly recommend if you do this, go to the Martin Creek Trailhead. This is not a paved trail, but it is level and it's wide enough to get through on the dirt paths. It's hard packed and depending on your ability, some manual chairs really might not have a problem getting through there. So it's you feel like you're really out there in the wilderness. It's off of Route 2 on the way to Stevens Pass. The Martin Creek Trailhead is, I don't know if you might have seen it from the freeway, or Route 20. It's where the big red caboose is. So, and they have an historic placard there. And actually the first part of the trail is paved. It is kind of steep, but it's paved. And then after that, you get up to the top and there's some cool snow tunnels to go through. That's in that first picture. It's really cold in there. It's kind of fun to go in there. Beautiful, as you can see, the flowers. We were there in July last year, and that was just a lot of fun. Loved the uniqueness and the quietness. You feel like you're just really, way out there. Not a lot of traffic to hear or people or anything. So, okay, next one. Next trail. Some of you might have heard this. I spoke about it a bunch of times. Gold Creek Pond, and that is off of 90 at Snoqualmie Pass. And literally, that is the color of the water. It's a gorgeous trail. It's about a mile and a half loop around that pond or that little man-made lake you're looking at. And some of it's becoming more well-known. Some of it is, I noticed last time I went, there's some like routes and there's some things to get around. I think you can still get around. It's just kind of going around the side of the trail. But literally there's a little bridge there and they have wheelchair accessible spots like where I'm sitting right there. Behind me, there's a bunch of tables with cutouts for wheelchairs, this and that, and they're accessible from the trail. So, I mean, this would be a great place to have a large gathering. Again, this is becoming more common, more popular. When I went to it like 10 years ago, there was hardly anybody, but now on the weekends, it can be crowded. I would recommend a weekday. They do require a discovery pass. So if you have your placard, that'd be fine. But it's just beautiful water. You think you're like in the Caribbean or something when you look at that. Of course, there's the pine trees around, which is in Caribbean, but very fun trail and short. Okay, next. This is one that, this is actually my very favorite trail, I think, in Washington, because it is far away though. So this is not a day trip. It's off of Route 20 on the way to Winthrop. So, and someone mentioned going to Winthrop. Definitely stop and check out Rainy Lake Trail. It is one of the only trails that that's accessible to get up to an alpine lake. And seriously, that water does look like that when you get to the end of the trail. It's maybe a mile or two. And that is the trail surface. It's actually pavement under there. So that's a lot of needles on there, but it's fairly level. But it's definitely wheelchair accessible and well worth it. The problem is you definitely need to call before you go because this has a lot of snow on it for a long time. It's only not covered in snow, maybe a month or two. So make sure you call in advance and check the trail. I went there last summer and unfortunately they didn't have it posted, but there was a tree that fell. I mean, a major tree across the trailhead. And I was almost there and I couldn't, it was so big. So my family went past and got to the lake, but I kind of had to turn around. So definitely check the conditions before you go if you're just going, to go to that trail. Otherwise, great stop on the way to Winthrop. So that's just a few of my favorite trails. I want to get into, I don't have this pictured, but some people like botanical gardens. I'm just going to touch briefly on that. University of Washington, the Arboretum. I've been going there every year, especially on Mother's Day. Very, very accessible, paved. There's even some that are not paved that you might want to try to get deeper into the woods. There's even a new trail that's there. And it's just, I love the Arboretum, lots of trees and plants, everything's labeled. And it's just a fun day trip. Also botanical gardens, I'd like to mention. There's some paved areas and some unpaved areas. That one has a fee of a few dollars, I believe, unless you buy an annual pass. But those are definitely two accessible botanical gardens that I've been to. They're really worth the visit. Okay, now we're on to Seattle-Bainbridge Ferry. Well, did I miss the, okay, well, the packer, sorry. All right, so this is something I realized. So I'm over there and it says Carnation Alpaca Farm. Well, apparently I must have been half asleep or I got my alpacas mixed up with my wallabies. So unfortunately, that is not the Carnation Wallaby Farm. It's the Alpaca Farm website that I put on there. Because as you can see, that is a wallaby, which is a kangaroo, not an alpaca. So I'm going to update that resource page. But it is, I would highly recommend going there if you're looking for something fun to do. They have a wallaby farm that it's family owned and they really, it's so friendly, and they really made a lot of effort to get people with wheelchairs into the barn where they give the whole explanation about the development of the kangaroos and wallabies, and then you can get out onto the grounds. And these guys are so cute and tame. They'll come right up to you. They were really interested in my wheelchair. They just couldn't get enough of, they were more interested and curious about that, I think, than anything. But that was really fun to do. Okay, on to the ferry trip. Let's see, Lily already mentioned the ferry. They are very wheelchair accessible. One of my favorite days going on the ferries was last year. We took a trip right from Seattle to Bainbridge and met a friend over in Bainbridge and did some trails and came back. Great day trip. Ferry was so accessible, easy to get to. We even extended that trip a couple of years ago. I went on with a friend of mine, took the Seattle-Bainbridge ferry over to Bainbridge, and then they have public transportation, a bus called the Straight Shot, which goes from, it goes right from Bainbridge straight to Sequim. It's a beautiful 2-hour drive on the public bus, $3, maybe it's up to $5 now. You get right off the ferry, the bus stop is right in there, you can get to Sequim. This is more than a day trip. And go hook up with Ian, and I'm sure he'll show you some great trails around Sequim. That was a really fun trip. I did that and then stayed overnight and hit some trails the next day on the Discovery Trail and came back. Again, just something that I really didn't think I would be able to do until I started exploring and doing it. So that was a lot of fun. All right, so I'm sure as most of us got through this last year, we were kind of getting bored of what to do. Well, I just thought, I wonder if we can ice skate. So there are actually 4 ice rinks in the state of Washington where you can go ice skating. This one that I went to was called Highland Ice and Shoreline, and we had a blast. I gathered a few friends in wheelchairs, manual and power, and we just went there and just let loose and just spun around on the ice. And there was only 20 people allowed on the rink. So there's plenty of time, plenty of space for all of us. And we just had a lot of fun. And that you can do that still. They take reservations, just call ahead because they will let you in where the Zamboni goes onto the ice. That's how you get in from the back of the building. So fun thing to do. Word of warning, it's super cold in there. So if you're trying to get out of the heat for the summer, you might like it, but still bundle up because you just freeze. It's just super cold. Obviously it's an ice rink. So. All right, a few more things down. Okay, and one of my favorite things to do, I used to fly hot air balloons before my accident, and I still love balloons or anything to do with hot air balloons. And this is called the Dreamcatcher Balloon Program, and it is out of Sequim. Crystal Stout is the owner and director, and she's been a longtime friend. She's the pilot. She has many, many hours logged. She's a very competent pilot, and this balloon was designed especially for people with disabilities, so you can transfer into that. As you see, there's not a gondola. That's Crystal and I doing a balloon flight over Sequim. And we did a free flight and it was just gorgeous. And I know we've given away some prizes at the Here Now organization, some raffle tickets. So I know a couple of you have tickets that you need to check out, but call her this summer. She's booking flights and or tethers. It depends on the situation. So that is a lot of fun. You even watch if you don't want to go. It's just fun to see. Okay, next, two more things. Argosy tour ship. I didn't put a picture on there, but I just wanted to mention that. They come out of Seattle. My husband and I actually got married on an Argosy tour ship 15 years ago. Very accessible, easy. The ramp feels safe, and you can go around in Lake Union. And of course, the bottom level is all accessible. They do have top levels. Some of them have elevator, I believe, but I've always been on the ones on the bottom. So I just love doing that. They have Christmas ship parades during Christmas time, and you can get on one of those boats. I've done those too. So just a fun thing to do. Argosy tour ship. Again, call again. I don't know what's going on during the COVID restrictions right now. And then my last two things are my favorite mountains in Washington. Mount Rainier, which I don't want to talk too much about because I know Ian's going to talk about Mount Rainier, but Mount Rainier has some amazing trails up by Paradise and wildflowers. And every year in August, we do Ride Rainier and welcome other people. So that is, Ian can talk more about that, but that's just an amazing mountain to be on. And Paradise Lodge is accessible. I've actually stayed there for a night or two. But I think what's even more special to me is Mount Baker. I don't know what it is about this mountain. I really like it. It's not as crowded. It's equal distance from where I live. It's 3 hours to get to Mount Baker or 3 hours to get to Mount Rainier. And Mount Baker, I've done a couple of definitely accessible trails. There's one that's a boardwalk called the Shadow of Sentinels. And that's a boardwalk all around there. That's kind of at the base. And then to the right, that picture, that's called Picture Lake. And that is a small lake around, it's about a mile trail around it. And the infamous picture of Picture Lake that's what you usually see about around Mount Rainier, because they say it looks like the enchantment, or no, basically I think Swiss Alps or something, but beautiful views, boardwalk paved all the way around. It's short, but it's really sweet. And it's on the way up to the top, which is, it's to the left. So that is the beginning of the Artist Ridge Trail, which is at the top of the mountain. And again, this is kind of similar to Rainy Lake. Make sure you call because sometimes that trail is covered in snow. And I've been up there. I went anyway sometimes if it was a nice day, because I'd sit in the parking lot and have 20-foot snow hills behind me, which is really cool. But if you can go on a day where there's no snow on those trails, amazing, amazing views. You feel like you're at the top of the world. It's higher up in elevation than Paradise. And some of them are level, some of them are kind of steep, but you'll definitely would enjoy it. So check it out. Check out the webpage that I have on the link and the resources. So basically that's what I have. And I hope I kept it under 10 minutes. I don't want to cut in Ian's time. And I also just want to say my intention is for you to, choose one of those things. I hope something kind of touched you that you want to do, whatever it is, choose at least one or more. And I hope that you get out and enjoy this beautiful nature we live in and God's creation, because it's just excellent for the mind, body, and soul.
Great.
Thank you
Denise.
so much. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Meg.
Go ahead, Elaine. I know that you're going to be fielding some questions for us.
Yeah. Let me see. Brian had a few comments. He talked about Footloose being closed. Is that right, Brian?
Okay. I wasn't sure. Keep it in mind for next year, though. It's a great organization.
Okay. Thank you.
I actually got my sailing certification through Footloose many years ago.
Of course you did, because Meg does everything. And she's purple, she doesn't. Okay, and Greg talked about Deception Falls Trail and Rainy Lake Trail. Greg, did you want to say anything more about that?
There we go. Yeah, the Deception Falls Trail is on the west slope as you're headed up towards Stevens Pass on Highway 2. It's kind of steep down from the parking lot, but with a little bit of help, it's worth getting down below the road and seeing the falls. It's You don't have to go all the way to the bottom because it's a cascade, a series of falls. But it's just one more place that you drive by typically, but I always wonder about these things. So every now and then we pull off and try one, and that one worked.
Great feedback. I want to try. I haven't been to that since before my accident, so I'm gonna try that one.
I like Denny Creek as well at Snoqualmie Pass.
Oh, great.
And Addie had a question. Addie, do you want to unmute? You're asking about a trail.
I think somebody else was able to answer that question for her.
Oh, okay.
But Addie, if you would like to say something.
It was, what is the name of the trail and lake off Highway 20 towards Winthrop? Oh, go ahead.
Rainy Lake Trail. And again, it's on the resource page after this presentation. Just click on it.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. And Lucas/Burke, I'm sorry, I don't know which is your name. He says his family has a website for wheelchair accessible trails called rollingwashington.org. Jane Ahrens also suggested, Jane, you were talking about the Cedar River Trail?
Yeah, it goes down to Lake Washington, and then in the other direction it goes toward Maple Valley, and it's pretty much all wheelchair accessible. I don't know if I've actually done the whole thing, so that might not be accurate, but yeah, it's kind of through the woods and an old brick company. The ruins are along it. And it's I guess it used to be a railroad corridor. So it's kind of neat.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And Jenny Schmitz, you had a recommendation about the Rainy Lake Trail. Did you want to talk about that?
Just to be careful that some of these trails are wonderful and easy for power chairs or really strong manual chair users. But people who use manual chairs should always check to make sure that they're not incredibly steep like the Rainy Lake Trail, because it's hard to get up those hills without help.
Yeah, good point, Jenny.
That's good to know. And Kenny and Ian put a wonderful resource guide that Meg put together in the chat. So make sure to click on that. And also Denise's favorite adventures is on there with the link. And Marcia, do you want to talk about Bainbridge Island?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to add about Bainbridge Island is that there's a $1 bus that will take you anywhere on the island, drop you off, and then come back and pick you up again, including Bloedel Reserve, which is just an amazingly gorgeous place to go. It's, it's a bit more manicured than other places, but it really is, it's lovely. Because of COVID, you have to get your tickets in advance, but it's worth it.
Yeah, Marcia, that's our next trip this summer.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. And Erica, Myron, you were talking about National Trail Day.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that Sunday the 6th is National Trail Day, so post your pictures.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any hands up. Does anybody else have any questions? I do have a question. This is Elaine. How do you plan ahead so that you make sure you have enough power, in your batteries and so if you go on these long trails, Denise and Lily, how do you make sure, that do you just plan it accordingly, knowing how long your battery is going to last? And or do you have spares? How do you deal with that?
I think first it's really important to know your chair and what it can do. So I've kind of reached the limit, so I kind of know I have an idea what it's going to do. So I know that my chair will go 16 miles on a flat level surface. So I kind of plan accordingly. And then that depends. There's so many variables, as Ian can attest to. You know, depends if you stop and you wait, or you have you go up and down, or how long you wait, stuff like that. So you kind of have to know your chair to plan ahead.
Thank you. Lily or Ian, do you have any other comments on that?
I agree with Denise.
All right. Well, let's
Muting.
move on.
Can you hear me now?
Oh.
Oh, I was trying to
Yeah.
unmute it.
Oh, sorry.
I kept on clicking it. It wouldn't undo it. For me, actually, I just got a new wheelchair, so I have no idea how long it's going to be able to roll. I just initially I just watch the battery level, and I don't go out by myself for the first few times. I definitely know that if something is kind of like mushy gravel, I just don't last as long on that. That seems to burn my batteries pretty quick. So yeah, I just experiment with it until I'm comfortable with it. So like what Denise said, and once you know your chair, then you can go further. I think these guys go, I think Ian and Denise, I think you guys go a lot further than I generally do, because my husband's usually walking with me. And he doesn't usually want to walk 20 miles. Not at one time.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Meg.
All right. Ian, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Oh, you're muted, Meg. You're muted.
Thank you. All right. Ian lives with C2 quadriplegia out of Port Angeles. He's a big fan of getting outside and runs a nonprofit called Ian's Ride that advocates for a more accessible outdoors. He is a proud board member of the Here and Now Project, consults for Apple, provides in-person demos for recent SCI survivors, and is on several tech-based advisory boards. His main philosophy is that living with paralysis is difficult. Doing it alone is near impossible. Community is the answer. We are stronger together, and nature is the best medicine. Take it away, Ian.
Thanks, Meg. All right. So many of you know me, and I'm all about getting outside. I gave myself Ian the Trail Guy Mackay moniker about 3 hours ago when putting this all together. but I'm happy to be here, and it's an honor to talk with Lily and Denise, and I look forward to the next speaker too. So I am all about getting outside, and I believe it's healing for the spirit. It's a great way to boost creativity. It's often a way for me to manage spasticity. I mean, just the bouncing around really can help with that. But most of all, it brings a smile to my face. Yeah, and as Meg mentioned, I'm an executive director of my nonprofit. It's all about creating a more accessible outdoors. I'm honored to be on the board of the Here Now Project. My academic background before I was paralyzed was biology, and I have ridiculously long hair. That's about the gist of me. What else I've done? I've done a lot of ridiculously long rides. I've gone from Port Angeles up to Canada, all the way down to Portland, about 370 miles. I did a 500-mile trip all the way from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho to Port Angeles. That's over the Cascades in my chair. And I just this past October did a really neat ride down the Pacific Coast bike route on the Redwood Coast down to Fort Bragg. And those are really awesome. And if you'd like to hear more about those, come join any of the monthly support groups that the Here and Now Project puts on. I'd love to tell you more about my adventures. But what I want to talk about is trails, right? Trails are my jam. That's kind of where I'm happy. And I want to highlight just a few on the North Olympic Peninsula. I know I'm limited on time here, so I'm gonna fly through all of this. But God, it's weird I'm not seeing my chat. Okay, but here's a few highlights. So first, Madison Falls. Manual chair users, those that don't want to go very far, this is perfect. Now this is up in the Port Angeles area. It is 0.2 miles both ways. Very short, very easy, beautiful. It's paved, and highly recommend it. It is within the Olympic National Park. Another one that's also within the Olympic National Park is Maramere Falls. You cannot even get to the falls. However, it is so beautiful. It doesn't matter. It's 1.7 miles both way. There's huge old trees, and it's a very smooth dirt path. And you know, you're not seeing a lot of elevation gain. So it's pretty simple for people. And really the last main trail I want to mention is the Spruce Railroad Trail. I shouldn't say it's the last one. I'm going to be talking about trails the whole time, but Pacific Trail. The Spruce has recently been added to the Olympic Discovery Trail, which is over 75 miles long, and it itself is beautiful, but this little section is about 11-mile round trip. It has been dirt for years and years and years. It's a rail trail, and they just paved it this past year. And yeah, I recommend that highly. Goes around Lake Crescent. You're right on the banks of the lake the whole time. It's pretty incredible. And I did want to, you know, I was asking Lily kind of about some activities that she enjoyed out there. And for me, you know, I am a birder, and so digiscoping has been really fun. So using like a spotting scope or even a binocular with a camera or a phone camera lens attached basically right to the scope lens, and you can get some amazing photographs. And you're able to like look through a scope where otherwise I could never get my eye up to it. So that is pretty convenient. Geocaching is actually something I really enjoy out there. It's fun to go find, you know, little stuff and have you know, a little scavenger hunt when you're out enjoying the trail. You know, photography, another big thing I love to do, just with my phone cameras, but it's beautiful. And I'm a plant nerd, always got to look at the plants. But sometimes, you know, it's fun to join an organized group ride and explore with others. And there's a few of them I'd really like to mention. So Ride Rainier, which we now are calling Ride Tahoma, to stand in solidarity with the Puyallup tribe and go back to the original name of the mountain. Anyway, we've been doing this since 2017. We also did it in 2020, and we will be doing it again in 2021. This year, it is going to take place on Wednesday, July 28th. It's always the last week of July, and we like Wednesdays or Tuesdays just because it's not quite so crowded up there. Anyway, it's on the Paradise section. There's some fairly steep hills. It's tough for manual chair users. We do bring support. We have some people to help push. And you know, if you're up for it, we're happy to help. But it's great company, and the views are amazing. And as Denise said, the wildflowers are off the hook around late July. Another one I want to mention is the Clear Creek Trail. This is a brand new event, and Marcia Cutting is putting it on. I put her email address there so you can contact it. But it'll be taking place on July 24th at noon, and it'll go until 3 p.m. But this is the first annual of this event, and it's a neat little trail through Silverdale that kind of goes through the town. And yeah, check it out, because Marcia has been helping me, or I've been helping her put on the Ride Rainier, Ride Tahoma event for this will be our 5th year. Another one I better mention, because Lily talked about the Willapa, is Ride the Willapa, which happens on June 26th. This is a group ride. It's a family event. And I mean, it's like 30 miles of trail. It's more trail than you're going to need to use. But they have aid stations, and they have lots of really beautiful things to see along the way. The first 3 to 5 miles, I believe, are paved. After that, it is mainly dirt. But a lot of it's more like the chipped limestone, which is very simple and easy to ride on. Not many hills. It is a rail trail. So yeah, it's got a pretty easy grade. If you're really ambitious, and I know most of you can't ever do this, but the Hurricane Ridge in Port Angeles, once a year, they close down the whole mountain to vehicles, and they only allow individuals on bikes to go. And there is one wheelchair every year that makes the attempt, and I've failed a number of times. I've succeeded 3 times since then. This is just an older picture I put together. Beautiful, and that is the 1st of August this year. But it is nearly 5,000 feet, over 17 miles. but there are aid stations and it is pretty. And hey, if you're looking for something fully supported, where you can join others with mobility impairments over a weekend of fun, this is the event for you. So we've been putting this on for 3 years now, and it is 74 miles over 3 days. We have aid stations every 5 days, and we have aid stations over every 5 miles, and there are shuttles and wheelchair vans available. This is designed for people to really push the limits of their chairs. So often we don't know how far we're going to go on a battery, and we don't want to just get stuck. For this, I've got the cross-country team and the ROTC kids going to be there to help wheelchairs get off the track. We have wheelchair vans to take people back to their vehicles. You know, we try to provide full support, and we're available to be reached, and we can talk about whatever we can do to make this possible for you. It's just a chance to push your limits with the confidence that help is available. We also are going to get loaner chairs this year from Invacare. We have 4 or 5 power wheelchairs that we're going to be available for maybe those in manual chairs that might want to participate in a power chair for a day, maybe for a policymaker, just to kind of show what we experience on a day-to-day thing. There's also going to be a couple loaner smart drives. Thanks to Addie and her recommendation, I got those approved today. We also have some cool merchandise and giveaways. There's a professional photographer, and you're around like-minded people. It's a really cool event, and you can go to iansride.com to see more information and to register. Anyway, it's a really cool event, and we'd love to have you join. That is mostly it. However, while you guys were talking, I did throw together just a couple little slides just for resources for you guys, so you can find trails. So there's 2 sites, alltrails.com and traillink.com. Both of them are really useful, but they both have filters that allow you to get wheelchair friendly trails. So then you can look in your whole area and see what's possible. So yeah, all trails, traillink.com. Traillink.com is through the Rails to Trails Conservancy, who are awesome, and I recently partnered with. But anyway, that is about it. And thank you guys for taking some time to hear about trails.
Oh, thanks, Ian. That was wonderful. You're getting me excited about this. We have a couple questions here, and Nancy was saying that the link to Denise's website wasn't working, and Rob said it downloads into a Word file on your computer. Lucas, you were asking, when is Ride to Homa?
Oh, it is July 28th, I want to say. I can go back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll double check. But
And Balin wanted to know if there are any charging stations along the way.
so that's something we're looking into. Often, you know, the amount of time that you really need to charge takes a little longer than it would be just to sit like at an aid station or something. But it is something that we're looking into. We do have people that have requested it, and there are a few places we could do it. Often the problem is many of the chairs tend to do it more as a group ride, where we're kind of in a pack, and often there's not an opportunity there to stop and charge. What some people do is there are sections of or parts of the days that are really hilly, and they will go to a charging location that we will have, and then they'll sit there with by their car or in my house or wherever and just sit and charge for an hour so that they can come join us for another 30, 40 minutes or at least a few miles.
That's wonderful. Marcia said, don't miss Sea to Sound. It's amazing. And she also mentioned Ride to Homa is Wednesday, July 28th at 2 p.m. And Joseph says, get down with your bad self, Ian.
Whoop, whoop. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Ian, and for all the questions. Just another little reminder of our raffles to stay tuned for. In addition to the $100 Hilton card, we're also providing just a general $100 Visa gift card for food or gas or some of those other incidentals that would come in handy on a little overnight getaway. So be sure to stay tuned for that. Our next speaker up is Rory Calhoun. Rory has lived with T12 paraplegia since 1983. He's been involved with outdoor recreation in government agencies since 1986, including state parks, fish and wildlife, the Department of Natural Resources, and many local governments. He has helped change laws to benefit fishers and hunters with disabilities. In 1994, he started working for a grant agency called the Recreation and Conservation Office, RCO, and retired last July. He has consulted in hundreds of construction projects benefiting recreation and advising on accessibility. He served for 2 years on a federal access board, writing the outdoor areas camping rules, incorporating them into the ADA. He is now ready to enjoy his retirement in his recently purchased new truck and modified RV trailer. Thank you, Rory.
Hi, thanks for having me. Hello to everybody. And for most of you who know Marty Whitman, he was sort of a roommate of mine back in 1983 at the Good Sam Rehab Center, where some of you probably know where that is. Hey, Marty, thanks for letting me know about this. I spent a lot of years and I did a ton of PowerPoints in my day, and I'm really glad not to have to do one today, but I enjoyed the ones that I saw today so far. They're a lot of fun, but we lived and died by those things in the last 10 years of my career. And so I'm kind of glad I didn't have to spend weeks and weeks preparing for one of these, like a meeting that we used to have all the time. But I was very familiar with hearing all the trail names of a lot of the places people talked about today. A lot of them I actually had some bit of consulting on or work on because they were projects that were funded through the office that I worked at. And so the names sounded pretty familiar to me, and a lot of them I actually had been on after they were finished. So it was good to see the people are out there and enjoying them. I wanted to say for most of my career, I was really lucky because I got to go out and do all that stuff, and I got paid to do it as well. So part of my career took me, to fishing spots, hunting spots, riding an ATV, snowmobiling, on bike trails. I never went on the horseback rides. That wasn't my thing to do, but I had opportunities to do it. But people in our office do lots of different stuff. We used to own motorcycles back in the day. Our office had quads for a while, but then we decided all the stuff we had got old, so we started using the stuff from the agencies that purchased it from us. But the agency I worked for is a small state agency that's not really well known. Some of you probably never even heard their name, but they have a huge, huge impact on the state as far as recreation goes. They celebrated their 50th anniversary a couple years ago in creation. And the fun part about that job was it was really well-funded state agency, had a lot of support from all the governors and all the years and all the legislatures. And so they really have a huge impact. The annual budget's about $400 million every biennium, including for the salmon side at the office. But I worked on the recreation side where we did everything from funding or participating in funding for outdoor recreation, including baseball fields, soccer fields, swimming pools, a lot of the trails you've seen, of course, the paved trails, the local parks, playgrounds, gun ranges, ORV parks, ORV trails for off-road vehicles and Jeeps, and boat launches, boat ramps, boat docks, fishing piers, pretty much everything you could imagine in the outdoors was part of the office where I worked at. And so I typically was charged with helping support all the other grant projects and managers in making sure that people that built and constructed recreation sites, whether it was a day use, whether it was a park, whether it was just a restroom and a pull-off, if they made it with money from our office, I was always after them to make sure they made it with accessibility in mind. And I have to go out and check out a lot of that stuff and actually make sure they did it right. And there was a lot of different versions of what people thought were right and what was accessible. I always took the approach of, let's make sure it's usable for everybody at the same level. and not try to make it so the accessibility stuff stands out, but that it was actually integrated and easy to use. So I was really an advocate of saying, I know what the building code is, I know what the ADA says, but let's not go with the minimums or the maximum slope. Let's go with making it the best we can. And a lot of times, the stuff they did was not as good as you would have liked to have seen it happen. And some of that was because, trying to get permits to do a bunch of excavation triggered other issues and unintended consequences. They wouldn't let you do it, or there was biology involved and you couldn't, pave by a stream, or they wouldn't let you cut a hill down and make it, at less slope. So a lot of things that, are usable, not as accessible as we'd like them. And a lot of that just was because of other factors that couldn't be changed, or were a lot of pushback from people that wouldn't necessarily want to change them. Nobody was really anti-accessibility. It was really more about, also they had other jobs, they protected the environment. And sometimes it logically just didn't work, or other times it just wasn't cost effective. It just made no sense. But I love seeing that picture of the Spruce Trail. That was one that was one done recently up there at Port Angeles, and that had a ton of work involved. They had a really good county official, the Parks Department, that really advocated for doing that. Worked really tirelessly with the federal government and different people that were in charge of the Park Service up there. Had different opinions on allowing it and then not allowing it. They didn't want paving, and they did want paving. So I'm really glad it turned out and paving happened on that one. The Tommy Thompson Trail, I was on that one when they first did that one. And if you live nearby there, you might remember when it was being built. Shortly after it was almost open on that bridge, somebody lit it on fire, and so it had a fire and they had to rebuild part of it. So a lot of the stuff you're seeing, the Willapa Hills Trail, for example, I spent a lot of time down there talking with state parks, and they did a pretty good job of getting a lot of hard crushed rock surface where they couldn't pave it yet. Their typical mode for state parks statewide is to get the trails in ownership, and they've done a pretty good job of getting most of the trails, cross-state trails, that aren't in local government or that are available in state park ownership. And then they start with, taking the ballast off the trails. Usually they get them without the railroad ties and the iron rails on there. They grind up that ballast with a machine they have, relay it down, compact it, then put a layer of rock on there. And then eventually, it gets to, in certain areas, they pave them. And so bridge crossings are very expensive. They're typically the deterrent to making lots of miles of trail, whether it's state park or local governments. The old bridge trestles and rails are very expensive to replace. There's a lot of issues because all those are crossing streams or water corridors, and they always have salmon issues and biology to deal with. So those cost a lot of money. They take a lot of time, but they're making really good strides across the whole state. My suggestion for a lot of you folks that want to go out and hit trails in your local area, if you don't know a lot about what's going on, you're not sure, call the local parks department and try to talk to the parks director, the assistant director, or the trail maintenance person. You can probably go on most of their websites now and look at the people and see what their titles are and figure out who would be the best person to talk to. And then you're able to kind of touch base with them and tell them what you're looking for, ask them what they have. I will tell you that typically on long corridor trails for local governments and state parks where ravines, where they had old bridges, or stream crossings, water crossings that were where the bridges were taken out, and maybe the trails go down the side of the bank and they switch back and forth and they're not there anymore. Typically try to suggest having a trailhead at both sides of that, and then have good information on their websites and their brochures back in the day when they were paper brochures before everything became electronic, and to have information that said the trail goes from this direction north so many miles, or goes south, and there's a reason, so you could start at one end and finish, or if one of them had an unreasonable slope on it, they would tell you which end to start at. So if you wanted to do a nice trail and then just coast down it, as opposed to having to push up it in a manual chair. Most rail grades were under 5% slope back in the day because steam engines couldn't handle that with big loads. So that's why the rail trails are naturally typically really good, because they're wide corridors, typically paved, 10 to 15 feet wide sometimes. And so those are the ones you want to try to target to get on. There's quite a bit of local government involvement now trying to connect trails. So if you're familiar with, the trails in Seattle, come down, connect to Auburn, Kent, the Valley Floor, they come down and connect to, the White River over in Buckley and Carbonado, and then they connect to the Foothills Trail in Ording and then down to South Prairie. And that's there's a master plan of trails, if you don't know, to connect stuff. Statewide trail from, the Palouse Cascades Trail from, Centennial Parks and Spokane and trails there all the way across central Washington and down through Ellensburg and up, the trail over at Easton State Park. There's a ton of connections and master plans for connecting all these trails eventually. The one trail you guys talked about connecting from Willapa Hills, which connects from Chehalis all the way out to the town of Raymond and South Bend. And that's a real popular one that you guys had some stuff on earlier. And also State Parks is working to do a lot of good stuff with that one. The other one that's the Olympic Discovery Trail, which is a big one up around the Olympic Peninsula and with all the connecting parts and some of that you saw on the Spruce Railroad. That's one that's really been supported and had a lot of money. So I've been involved with a lot of that stuff when it comes to trails. The other thing I spent a lot of time working in my office was with Department of Fish and Wildlife and getting a lot of accessibility, all their boat launches and their sites they own statewide, 700 plus fishing boat water access sites. Most of them now typically, the common thing to do is at least pave an accessible parking spot, have an accessible vault toilet, or CXT is the brand name of the one, that's pretty typical concrete toilet that's fully accessible and usable. And then if they have a boat launch, they are trying to install more boarding floats now so you can actually get into your boat. Historically, they didn't put a lot of those in because they never give money to fund the maintenance of those sites. So for a lot of years, they didn't put a lot of floats in beside the boat launches. Now they're starting to do that because the aging population of people with disabilities, it's a big benefit to be able to get in and out of a boat. The other thing that is happening on fish and wildlife sites is they're doing more trails now in their areas where they're wildlife viewing and places where people also hunt. They have a lot of accessible duck hunting and goose blinds that are also blinds you could use for wildlife viewing when it's not hunting season. And then one more thing they do is they cooperate real heavily with the Department of Natural Resources on allowing some gate access areas, driving behind lock gates for purpose of hunting, but you can also contact Department of Natural Resources. They have a great person who works with all their accessibility stuff named Heidi Stevens in Olympia, who knows a lot about all their accessibility statewide and do that stuff. Keep in mind, I heard earlier about Discover Passes. A Discover Pass is one sold that's good at all three agencies, State Department of Natural Resources and state parks typically, but also they're good at Department of Fish and Wildlife sites. But if you buy a fishing or hunting license, you automatically get a free access pass from the Department of Fish and Wildlife that's good for any fish and wildlife site. It is not good at state parks and it's not valid on Department of Natural Resources lands. So there's a difference there. But the Discover Pass is good in all three areas. State Parks also offers a disability access pass, and they honor your parking placard or disabled license plate for parking in their day use areas and at their boat launches and some different stuff. So you could contact them for specific information on how to get the accessible pass or how their rules apply at state parks, because they're a little bit different than Department of Natural Resources. So that's kind of some clarity on that. And I know people talked about the other passes on the federal government lands, and there's been conversations for a lot of years, one pass to get everybody everywhere, but no one can figure out how the funding breaks down and how it would be collected and how it would be dispersed between state agencies and federal agencies. So that's why you'll probably never see that. I've been involved with that a little bit and heard lots of conversation on how that went. The Discover Pass revenue is shared between state parks, Fish and Wildlife, and DNR. State parks gets the bulk of that money for their use. So what else could I tell you about? Keep in mind when you're talking about accessibility and places to stay, like Cape Disappointment was mentioned, and there's a lot of good stuff down there. They also have accessible yurts and cabins down there. And a lot of the state parks now are putting in more cabins and more yurts. And anywhere they put in new cabins or yurts, they should be, and they had a policy for a while that, and I had a lot of conversations with them, they're always going to have at least one accessible unit And they're putting in lots and lots of them now. And they typically put in the bigger parks, they'll put more than, 4 or 5, 6 yurts in every camping loop. And so at least one, if not more of them, will be accessible to get into for the yurts, and the same with the cabins. So check that out as an alternative to, if you don't have an RV or if you don't want to stay in a hotel. I know in the summer they book up a year in advance. The off season, you'd be more likely to get one. And just FYI, Oregon State Parks has had yurts for a lot of times, and you can probably, if you planned it well, you could probably stay at state parks in Washington and Oregon and do a whole coast trip by nothing but staying in yurts, or mix it up with a combination of accessible cabins. So there's a lot of yurts that are accessible in the Oregon State Parks and in a lot of Washington State Parks as well. Some of the federal refuges like Snoqualmie, somebody showed some great pictures and scenery and stuff they had down there, and they talked about Ridgefield Refuge where you can drive through that one. Ridgefield actually has some hunting blinds that are available for hunters with disabilities and wheelchairs on a drawing basis during the hunting seasons, but those blinds are also available in the off season. Use them as birder blinds, because even though there's a lot of hunting that goes on in a lot of places, all those lands and all that money that's spent on hunting licenses and hunting locations, all that stuff is made available for conservationists and non-consumers of those things. And so all of you that just want to do bird watching and picture photography and different stuff like that, and tons of hunters, they're all conservationists as well, they also benefit using those things in the off season. So that's another option for you to look at things. If you want to find accessible blinds, you can sit in and look at stuff. A really cute little bird blind and trail that'd be, no one mentioned, is a place on the way to Westport, Washington called Bottle Beach. And there's a little pull off on the side of the road there. And then you can wheel all the way out. There's a bird blind at the end of there. The trail about a half mile out on flat level compacted gravel. That's one that comes to mind off the top of my head. I've been to a lot of these sites around the whole state. And so, I've been retired for a year. A lot of them are on top of my head right now, but I certainly know there's a ton of them out there. And do a little research on your own. Call the state park that's nearby you and ask them what they have available. You can call the state park's ADA coordinator, Olympia, and talk to her. Her name is Nikki Fields. I think she's still doing it. The person at the Department of Natural Resources, her name is Heidi Stevens and Olympia, and you can call her and talk to her about accessibility on Department of Natural Resource lands. Department of Natural Resources has about 50 or 60 campsites on the west side and 50 or 60 on the east side that have a lot of accessibility built into theirs as well, and along with some day use areas and places you can just go for the day, and picnic areas, as well as state parks. So that's a really good thing to remember, is that if you want details, call the parks directly. It might be a little harder to get a hold of now, but there's so much access to their stuff online. You call and get the right person at Olympia and then say, hey, I need to know, I want to talk to the ranger out of this park or wherever it's in your area. And then they're pretty good about accommodating people when they come in, and if they need something extra that they don't have in the spot, they're really good to work with. So keep that in mind as an option. Don't look at something and say, oh, that park has nothing accessible. Call them and find out what they have, because they're making improvements all the time. What they really need help with, though, is when they think about projects and doing stuff, anything that people want done, if you see something you'd like improved at a park, call them and talk to their park director. Talk to the person and say, look, here's what I found at your park. I love your park, but you're not accessible to get to your beach, or you're not accessible to get to your playground, or whatever they're missing. There's the option to put that in their plan for future upgrades, and they also have it in there for a plan to also do applications to the agency I used to work for to get grants to do that stuff. And they love people to be advocates and push them to do stuff. So I guess that's what I can offer right now. I'd be more than happy to answer some questions, or if there's something else you'd like me to go over, feel free to ask me.
Thanks, Roy. You're just a wealth of information, that's for sure. And I did speak with, or emailed Nikki and Jesse Sims today.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just this weekend went to the Penrose Point campground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, their bathroom was not wheelchair accessible, and Yeah, I took a little tumble in the women's room. So, yeah. So they were on it. Man, they answered back so fast. It made my head spin. So, they said they might not be able to make it accessible immediately, but they will bump it up the list of, priorities, which I
Well,
really appreciate.
Penrose, yeah, that's, I know their day use was kind of older. Over on the campsite and the boat inside, they've been working, kind of been fighting an uphill battle with Pierce County for a couple of years, trying to upgrade that facility, be more wheelchair accessible, put in a wheelchair campfire ring, picnic table, restroom building and stuff there. But the county's been giving them kind of some grief over that. I think the permitting might be done and it's probably going to happen pretty soon. But that's a lot of the problem. And I will tell you that the more support they get from local people with disabilities wanting things done, it's a good way for them to push back at the county. I will tell you, I'm not anti-government because I work for them, but I'm pretty anti against the permitting agencies and permitting people seem to be a little bit overboard these days on doing stuff. And it really hurts the ability for the agencies to build and do stuff. And a lot of people think pavement and hard surface is a bad thing for everything, but obviously it's really good for accessibility and for long-term maintenance. And so I'm really an advocate for the more they push back. And I can tell you, I was on a lot of site visits with everybody out there to look at a project, from permitting agencies to the Army Corps of Engineers, the federal government, the state government, the local governments. And when I was out there and we said, here's what we're trying to do. And they said, well, we don't want you to do that because this and this. And I go, well, which is going to do it? Is the ADA going to be the one that pushes the top of this, or which one? And then we came back and I said, how would you like to try to do this, using a mobility device and see what the issues are? Once they kind of met a lot of times on site and saw what happened, they're like, oh yeah, okay, we understand now. It's not okay. Well, we'll let you do that. But some of them, they just don't know. Some of them are doing what they think is best for what they know. And in all reality, everyone has a job to do. So you just have to figure out how to negotiate and talk to them. But when they have a lot of support from people wanting something, that helps them get it done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Lily wanted to know what your state agency is that you retired from.
The Recreation and Conservation Office, and the nickname was RCO. They changed that name about 12, 15 years ago. It originally was started out as the Interagency Committee for Outdoor Recreation, known as the IAC. And so if you go to any state or local park and some federal Forest Service sites and also federal national parks, you might see on the entry sign, typically, there'll be a little sign, cooperating agencies or funded in part by the, and you'll see a little sign that says the Interagency Committee for Outdoor Recreation. It might say the Land and Water Conservation Fund, or it might say the Recreation and Conservation Office. That's all tied to that office because that was federal money that came through our office for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and we administered that money out for the local governments to spend.
Great, thank you. Balin had mentioned about horseback riding since you brought it up. And sounds like she found a place for therapeutic riding called Little Bit Therapeutic Riding Center in Redmond.
Yes, I've heard of them. Actually, I've talked to them over the years. Horseback riding was something that the Department of Natural Resources has a lot of horseback riding places around the state. And so does state parks. They have a few horse camps and a few horse places as well. Riverside State Park is one, and they have a brand new one up by Eatonville, the Snoqualmie Michelle, which will be a big horse park when it's built. And they built accessible loading areas so you could bring a horse in and kind of hold it in place to help you get on it at some of these sites. The problem with the I call them unmanned sites, but it's really sites that aren't managed where an on-site manager lives and is there every 24 hours a day. It's hard for them to put stuff and certain things in place that would work to get on and off horses and in and out of boats because the vandalism rates so high. People break things off, or if they put an arm or something was swinging across that would work for you, but somebody comes and steals it, or if it breaks, it's not functioning. So it's kind of hard for them to, they do the best they can with stuff that can withstand the weather and vandalism, but they could put more things in if that was what people needed, but it's really a hard balancing job between So somebody like a private entity like Little Bits Riding, where they can have other therapeutic stuff and things that help you load and unload on horses, for example, it's easier because they obviously can maintain it and keep it secure, you know, in the off time when people don't do that a lot at the at the stuff. So I spend a lot of my time, you know, over the years. I'm an avid hunter and fisherman. I spend a lot of time crabbing and shrimping and salmon fishing. I spend a lot of time deer and elk hunting and bird hunting. So I helped put in accessible duck blinds back in the 90s. I helped get all the hunting areas open where you can drive behind lock gates for people with disabilities. And I passed the laws to help you be able to shoot from your motor vehicle, provided it was parked and properly you were doing all the other rules, and hunt from ATVs and snowmobiles. And then to set up all the seasons to help hunters with disabilities and allow different equipment to be used and adaptive equipment to be able to use electronics on bow and arrows and crossbows and scopes on muzzle loaders and all those kind of things. And that's really been my passion the whole time, but I got to do a lot of other stuff as well to do that. But most time I'm hunting, fishing, shrimping, crabbing, salmon fishing. Fishing. Yeah, my wife said fishing. She has a lot of that with us. So I have a boat that I modified, and then I'm on my 3rd travel trailer, and I'm on my 4th ATV that I've modified to use over the years.
You sound like a busy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jane Aarons asked, is the John Wayne, or now it's called Iron Horse Trail, accessible? Do you know?
So if you start at Easton Lake State Park and go east on it, you know, that's a usable trail, I would say. The problem with that stretch, it gets a ton of horses and horseback riders and wagons on it. And so the crushed rock doesn't really, that multiple use surface like that doesn't hold up well. That's been kind of one of the issues with things when you mix equestrian with accessibility. You know, you can't really keep them off the, you know, some local governments actually put a separate equestrian trail beside like the paved or the hard surface trails. But yeah, I mean, I'd say it's usable for a lot of power chairs with big tires. And if you were really a adventurous, strong manual wheelchair user with the right tires, you probably could do it. I wouldn't do it alone, obviously, but you know, that stretch when it starts up in the mountains and then it continues down, I'd say you could probably use it, but there's probably better options out there than that particular piece. But again, the maintenance levels change every year on trails like that, and they go back and regrade and re-rock and do stuff. And there's been a real challenge between what some horseback riders want for horses and the type of shoes they use on trails and the type of gravel and crushed rock we'd like to see for, you know, like you're starting to see mountain bikes get on there more and they tear them up a little bit more. And so, yeah, on these multi-use trails like that are less than paved, I think it's a you know, enter at your own risk kind of a deal where it might be usable one day, it might not be the next.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a few more comments, and then I know we're going to be doing our drawing here soon. Lily said that people with disabilities get 50% off Washington State Park cabins and yurt rental last time she checked.
Oh, okay. I did not know that one. That might be new.
And she also said that that she's used the accessible bird blind at Ridgefield, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is about it. So thank you so much, Rory. You're just a wealth of information, and I'm sure that your office misses you in a big way.
Yeah, I was hoping they're going to fill the position with somebody that would be just accessibility. Originally, that was my job. I only did accessibility. Then the last 10 years, I was doing more grant management. And I was actually working with agencies and the ADA stuff I was doing. Well, the hope was always when we created that position that in 30 years, they wouldn't need a person to do accessibility stuff because it would be so ingrained and natural into everything that was done that I wouldn't need a job and they wouldn't need a person. But the truth is that everyone's not there yet. You know, state parks push hard to be all accessible everywhere, and they're not there yet. No one is. I mean, people are getting a lot better, but it's sort of people have taken it for granted in a way because it's so built into the regulations and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean people get it right. And believe me, a
Right.
lot of designers and architects think they're doing it right, and they're well intentioned, but sometimes it just doesn't quite turn out quite the way it was. And I used to be more of an advocate for crushed rock and less than paved stuff back when I was younger. And as I've gotten older, my shoulders are worn out. I'm a little more of an advocate because of maintenance, and I'd rather see more hard surface because I think it's more likely to be maintained better and be there a lot longer than. But you know, it's appropriate in a lot of places to put crushed rock down and hard packed surfaces. And some people want that kind of. They don't want a sterile concrete asphalt environment, and I get that too. So I think a mix of that stuff is good for everybody.
Well,
Right.
thank you. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Meg.
I was just going to thank all of our stellar speakers that we had today. We have learned so much.